Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans. This is Paul Carruthers, and this is our weekly MotoAmerica podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. As I mentioned a few seconds ago, I'm Carruthers. I've got Bice across the country, but joining me today, as always, for our weekly podcast in which we speak about MotoAmerica and sometimes other forms of racing as well. But how are you today, Sean?
I'm great. I mean, we've been talking a little bit, you and I, how, I think for you, it might be a little bit of jet lag getting back to California. I'm only an hour in the different time zone by an hour, but we did so much over the weekend, even though it was only our Medallia Superbike class, that takes a couple days to recover from all that. There was and a lot of running around for all of us, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to partially blame it on the fact that I was kind of overserved on Sunday night, thanks to the South Africans. That I've never seen more South Africans in my life than what was at the place I was at on Sunday night in Austin. But I think they had the whole country there. But yeah, so I think that wore me out a little bit because that ended up being a late night to finish things off. But it was a lot of fun, and I thought the weekend was great. It's always good to catch up with all. I know a lot of people in that MotoGP paddock, so it's always nice to see them. And I hadn't seen them in a while, because we missed the one race with COVID, and then last year we couldn't work it out with the schedule. So it's been a couple of years since we got to see those people. So it was really cool, and I thought our races were good. MotoGP was good. I mean, I thought the whole weekend was really nice.
Yeah, it was good. It's funny with me. There's still a huge part of me that's a fan. So whenever I go to COTA, there's always people that I admire and want to see that aren't in our series. And Paul, I know you know this, but I got a chance to finally talk to Simon Crafar, who you had commented is really advanced and done such a good job over the years and as a commentator. And so I finally got a chance to meet him and congratulate him for his 1998 win at the British Grand Prix on a Yamaha 500 two-strokes. So
that's funny.
It took a while, but he was happy. He seemed pretty pleased that somebody remembered that. So that was good.
Yeah, and I had Kenny Roberts duty for the weekend, which is enough to keep you busy. We had a good time. It was fun hanging out with him. I hadn't got to hang out with him for a while, and he was there as a guest of Dorna and handed out the trophy to the MotoGP winner, et cetera. And we had him on the grid and all kinds of stuff. So we had him running around quite a bit, but I think he enjoyed himself, and people get a kick out of seeing him and talking to him, because you know what he's like. He's a pretty funny individual.
Yeah. Do you think he knows he's funny?
Yeah.
Okay. He has that kind of twinkle in his eye, doesn't he, when he says stuff sometimes? It's like,
yeah, I think he knows he's funny, but it comes natural to him. I mean, he's not a fake funny. Most of his funny is just really quick-witted,
very quick-witted,
right to the jugular type stuff, so he's he doesn't spend any time writing his material at night, but he sure has good stuff. So
he really does. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's we have a good guest today. Actually, it's Michael Gilbert. Michael finished fourth in the MotoAmerica Stock 1000 championship last year. He had one win and 4 other podiums. I didn't even notice, but until I was doing a little research this morning, but he was only 5 points away from finishing second in that championship. So it was really close. Jake Lewis kind of got away from everybody a little bit on the points, but for second place, it sure was close. So he just narrowly missed out on getting second. He also finished fourth in the Superbike Cup. And at MotoAmerica, at COTA, he actually raced in Superbike and will be racing in Superbike this season. He had a little tip over in race 1, but was able to finish 10th in race 2. I'm kind of proud of little Michael Gilbert, because I don't know if you made it down to his pit, but he's a full team owner. He's got a semi, he's got a crew. So it was, I walked in there and saw all this stuff and everything, and it was hard to not be impressed because I mean he puts this stuff together himself, and it's something that he's really wanted, and now he's got it, and he's a big time team owner, big player in the MotoAmerica paddock, so it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, let's bring Michael in, and I gotta jump on that in a second. But Michael, you got an announcement to make. Let's announce your team here. Let's do that.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Yeah, 2022, we are the Cycle World powered by Octane Chuckwalla Valley Raceway team. That's a long name. But man, like you said, this is something we've been trying to put together, and I haven't probably slept in 4 or 5 months, but now it's on the road, and I'm extremely proud of it. Like as Paul said too. So man, it's been the creation or the result of a lot of hard work. So now we're finally going.
Yeah, and Michael, I want to say to what Paul said. I went by your paddock area, and Josh Merrill was in there working on the bike. Of course, he's one of your crew guys and a good friend of yours as well as Paul's, and an acquaintance of mine. I'd say he's a good friend too, but I'm too far away. But anyway, I remarked to him, I was like, my gosh, that truck just looks fantastic. The branding on the side, I think it's with the black, and all the brands pop so well on it with, like you said, the Octane group and the Cycle World brand, which is obviously world renowned. But you've always had a good program over the years, but you have really, really stepped up this year, and it's proper. I mean, you look like an absolute premier team right out there, and it's very impressive to see. So huge congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that.
Michael, how difficult is it to do what you've been doing as far as the team owner stuff? I mean, you've been doing that for a while. Obviously, it's a different level now, but it seems to me from the outside looking in, it's probably as hard, if not harder, than the actual racing the motorcycle part.
Yeah, racing the motorcycle is easy. No, I mean, like I said earlier, it's been the result of a lot of hard work, and 4 or 5 months literally taking everything I can just to get some sleep at night. It is very difficult, and I've learned so much about all of this in the last 3 or 4 months. Even from coming from a team owner perspective of the past, but it was obviously a much smaller capacity. To make this step with the semi, to make this step, we're going to have other riders coming in, and just continuously building. It's been a very, very difficult thing to do, but like I said, I'm very proud of it. To see it roll up on Thursday at COTA was I almost shed a little bit of a tear there. So we're just it's only the beginning. That's all I have to say.
Michael, question for you. Obviously, people know you as a moto journalist. You've been doing it for several years, although it still belies the fact that you're still very young. You started out real young in this, but I want to ask you this question. Are you a moto journalist who road races, or are you a road racer who is a moto journalist? And has that changed over the past few years?
I would say that I'm a road racer turned moto journalist. I mean, it's really kind of a funny story how I fell into moto journalism. It was all very quick, and I didn't really expect it to ever happen. Bradley Adams, who is now actually back at Cycle World with us, previously he was a sport writer, and the story is that I was sitting in class in high school, and he texted me and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing next Wednesday, Thursday?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm at school. Like, I got to go to school." And he's like, "Well, can you come help me with a comparison test that we're doing at Sport Rider?" And somehow I convinced my parents that I was going to go out to Chuckwalla Valley Raceway, help him with this comparison test, and they let me out of school and did it. And then it just became more and more work with the Sport Rider guys, and I landed a job there, and now I'm at Cycle World. So I truthfully just fell into it. And that being said, I would say I'm much more of a road racer turned moto journalist. But in recent years, I feel I've taken a very large step in my profession of moto journalism and the testing regiment that we have at Cycle World, and kind of analyzing different and deeper details than maybe I have in the past. Or as a road racer, I have to look at it as a consumer perspective as well.
Do you talk about this new situation this year with regards to I mean, I mentioned Josh Merrill. We know he's been with you for a couple of years now, but you have this proper transporter, big rig. What's on it, and who is on your team now? Do you have additional personnel than you've had in the past?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, as I previously mentioned, the name of the team is Cycle World, powered by Octane Chuckwalla Valley Raceway team. Now, what we did there is obviously we brought Cycle World back into the paddock. Cycle World has a pretty extensive history being in the AMA and MotoAmerica paddock. Previously with Eric Bostrom, I believe that was in 2010, and then Hayden Gillum later on, I think that was 2017. And really what we wanted to do there was essentially highlight Cycle World's authority in what we do, unbiased reviews and storytelling, and help connect the dots of Octane, which is our parent company. So we wanted to basically provide the end-to-end digital buying experience. You know, if someone comes to Cycle World, they read a review of a motorcycle and become informed about all this the landscape of motorcycling. You get pre-approved for a loan right on our site, and then we head off to the dealership and buy a motorcycle. So it's really important for us to get out into the paddock, into the demographic that's actually buying motorcycles. And then along with that, Chuckwalla Valley Raceway, they've been a huge supporter of mine for many, many years. I actually just recently wrapped up a 4th in a row #1 plate out at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway, which has really become a winter hotbed for professional racers. It's, you know, on any weekend, you'll see myself and Corey Alexander and Andy DeBrino, and Brandon Pash was there, and Dave Anthony. I've seen Tony Elias there, I've seen Jason Aguilar. Like, there's been so many people that come, that it's really been an incredible series and a good way to stay sharp during the winter. Now, in terms of personnel, yes, Josh Merrill's with me. He's my mechanic. Just really an amazing guy that I know has my back. And then I brought in Quentin Robles this year. Quentin is, you know, my new crew chief. And we really kind of began to mesh and start to work really well as a group. And with the truck, my deal with the semi truck is that I actually brought Mike Pond of Toon Racing back into the MotoAmerica paddock. And he's basically in charge of all the equipment on the transport side of things, and drives it, maintains it, and has really lent a hand in reducing some stress for me, getting this whole thing off the ground.
Now, as far as you mentioned, could somebody even of like not very good character like Sean Bice buy a motorcycle that way?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We try and make it as easy as possible. You know, if you guys are interested in, I don't know, let's say a Suzuki GSXR 1000, here's your first look, first ride, full test, comparison test, buyer's guides. And within all of those different stories is a link to basically sign up, get pre-approved for finance right there on our site, head over to a dealership, and it should be a very seamless in and out experience.
Well, there you go, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, heck, I could. My danger is past. You know, I could get past that. But hey, I want to go back to something real quick. Paul's gonna laugh about this because he says I love everybody in the paddock, but I do need to call somebody out that you mentioned who I did not even know was at COTA, and that's my beloved Mike Pond. I love that guy. I mean, man, the stuff he did with Bryce Prince and Jason Aguilar, and you know, to try to stay in our series with Tuned Racing over the years. And, you know, I think he moved to Nevada at one point. Maybe he's still there. You could tell us, Michael, but I didn't. So he was at COTA this weekend, and I didn't even get a chance to see Mike.
He was there.
Come on, Bias.
That's terrible. I gotta
really tells you how much you came around and said hi to me even.
Well, I was such in awe of that truck. I mean, I was kind of almost afraid. I mean, like I said, I sort of said hi to Josh Merrill from a distance. I think I waved to you at one time, but I didn't even see Mike. But I'm so glad he's working with you. He's such a good guy, right? I mean, and he knows what he's doing. So you got some good people there.
Absolutely. You know, Mike has been amazing in this whole process. We did a deal together that we're actually using the X tuned racing truck. And he's really lent his expertise and knowledge in everything surrounding running a semi truck and even running a team, and has really lent me a hand in a lot of things. And in a general sense, yes, I have an amazing group of people around me that has really made this whole thing possible, and had my back even in the tough times when pulling hair out at the dinner table trying to figure out how to make this whole thing work. But we brought it all together, and it's going to be a really fun year.
Now, Michael, I think part of your plan is to grow the team, and you're going to tell us who these other riders are, because we didn't get to that part earlier. But you're kind of like following the pattern created by David Anthony a little bit, aren't you?
A little bit. If I got to give credit to one person that really kind of got this whole thing off the ground, it's Dave Anthony. He's the one that put the idea in my head to do this whole thing. But yeah, we have kind of been following the process of what Dave Anthony has done here.
So tell me about these riders. I know it's not just going to be you under that big awning as we get to Road Atlanta.
So at Road Atlanta, we're going to have Owen Williams. He'll be racing the Junior Cup on a Kawasaki Ninja 400. And he'll be with me all year. Owen is a really amazing kid, really down to earth. He's 14 years old, but you talk to him and he probably sounds like he's 30 with all of his knowledge, and kind of humble roots. But anyways, he'll be joining us for the Junior Cup and continuing on all year. And then we'll have, I'm hoping, another rider join us about halfway through the year. He will also be stock 1000 Superbike, or maybe Superbike Cup. I'm not sure what that structure will look like. But fingers crossed, we'll have 3 of us under that awning, and that'll be just the beginning. And then maybe we will be able to build into something even bigger in 2023.
Now, do you work with Owen? You're a little bit more than just like a guy that brings his bike to the race. I mean, you help the kid and stuff, right?
Absolutely. That's kind of what I pitched the whole idea of running this semi truck was in the first place. Is Owen is a local California kid out at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway all the time. He's been a part of the JP43 training program with Jason Pridmore, which obviously I do an extensive amount of coaching with. So it was a way of, how can we bring Owen and some other riders into this program and basically place them in a situation where, myself and the guys I have around me have all been doing this for 8 or 9 or 10 years or even longer, and basically lend them that knowledge and help them along the way. Because in 2021, Owen went out racing with his dad, and, they didn't really have any guidance. So how can we help these kids along the way, and just, without being thrown to the wolves of professional racing so much.
Hey, Michael, can you tell us all, because I've struggled a little bit to try to understand this myself, let alone try to explain it to some people. And it's, there's been some changes in what I would call the hyper bike or the leader bike class over the years. I mean, we've had Super Stock 1000, we've had Superbike all along. Super Stock 1000 was a little bit different than what Stock 1000 became. But this year and then we had Superbike Cup, which was Stock 1000 bikes that we could race in Superbike races. And there was an incentive with tires and things like that. But this year, I believe you are doing Stock 1000, but you're racing kind of separately in Superbike on your Stock 1000 bike, but it's not Superbike Cup. What's your incentive to do that versus Superbike Cup? What's the differentiator there? I mean, I really don't get it. So help me.
So essentially, we chose to go Superbike route, as MotoAmerica now considers what we have a premier Superbike entry, which means we have MotoAmerica support in running this whole program, and helping get it off the ground. And that really allowed us to run the semi truck. And with semi truck comes extra branding and extra hospitality, to where we could kind of draw a little bit more money and help push us up into the Superbike class. Now, obviously, we're also going to race Stock 1000. And I'm out to win that championship as well, while the Superbike is really going to be sort of a developmental year, going full time into that class. I hope by, sometime around mid-season, we will have what I've been calling a hybrid Superbike, something that will get us a little bit further up the road in the superbike races, a little bit different than the stock 1000 spec machine, make it a little bit easier to ride, a little bit faster, and get us some better results. And then off into 2023, I plan on being in superbike full time.
Paul had mentioned David Anthony, and I didn't realize that you had kind of modeled your deal after David, but I can see that now, and it makes a lot of sense. And David's been in our paddock for a long time. He'd kind of told me during the off season when he was trying to figure out what he was going to do this year, that he kind of said if he wanted to be kind of top 5 or top, within the top. Well, he did say top 5 in superbike, and he said if he wasn't going to be able to achieve that, he might put somebody else on the bike or something. So my question to you is, well, I wonder what David's going to do. And will you have a second rider in your program? And do you see that your program over the next few years expanding even more? And, is there any connection with David at all since that was mentioned, I guess?
There's no connection. There's no direct connection with Dave in terms of anything really kind of happening this year. Like I said, Dave was kind of the one that really put this whole idea in my head to try and run this whole program. And I will say that Dave has been amazing in the off season, kind of helping answer questions and lending his knowledge into how he's gone about this, and especially with semi trucks and everything else like that I really had no prior knowledge of. A little bit same thing. Actually, I'd say a little bit. It's the same thing with Kyle Wyman. Kyle Wyman, I saw him out of Harley Davidson event for Cycle World, and he's been very helpful in answering questions and very willing to answer any sort of questions. So the whole paddock is really behind helping everyone in the paddock is behind helping the paddock grow. It's equally beneficial for all of us. Now, you got an echo.
Michael, you've also switched from Kawasaki to Suzuki. Did you go the entire off season, the racing and stuff at Chuckwalla? Was that all on Suzuki's?
So we made the change to Suzuki. The first time I threw a leg over the Suzuki for 2022 was in January. So we had about 3 Chuckwalla weekends on it, and then we had one other test day out at Buttonwillow. So truthfully, not a lot of time. But yeah, we made that transition from Cowie to Suzuki, and I couldn't be more stoked at this point.
Now, are you getting, is Team Hammer help, or did they build the bike, or is there any connection there at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I went straight to Chris Ulrich and Team Hammer, and we basically did a purchase of a motorcycle and a technical support program to where I have their full support on race weekends. It's really refreshing to have Chris and his guys in my pit setup following every session, just to check in, see how it's going, see what they can lend a hand with. But really, it's been amazing and something that I've been looking for a few years. Truthfully, I was trying to race a Suzuki in 2021, and there was just a couple factors behind it that we ended up racing the Kawasaki again in 2021. And then with building this whole program in 2022, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do what I want and build the program around me that I want, that I'm comfortable with, and what I feel is conducive to success. And that's really what's led us to Suzuki and our partnership with Team Hammer.
Michael, I found out over the weekend by talking to John Ulrich as well as David a little bit, that back to David Anthony, and I don't mean to make this all about him, but I guess he's he's kind of a de facto test rider for Team Hammer as well. So that's interesting that Hammer built your bike. I mean, it makes sense with what their background has been with Suzuki. But the one thing I want to mention, you mentioned about Eric Bostrom and Hayden Gillum, there's been a legacy with Cycle World to be involved in road racing. And I mean, it even goes back further. I know Paul remembers this, and I certainly do, that Don Kane would go to Daytona a lot, and they do stuff at Willow or whatever. So there's always been a pretty good connection between Cycle World and racing and supporting it. I mean, with Hayden Gilliam and that man in a van with a plan thing was so cool. But the one trend I just happened to think about is Eric Bostrom was on a Suzuki Hayden Gillum was too, and now you are with Cycle World. Is there any is it just coincidence with that?
Yeah, it's absolutely just coincidence. That's funny. I never thought about it like that.
Ostrom was on a Suzuki, Sean?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was with the tack on a Suzuki. It's funny, Matthew Miles still has that bike. It's a GSXR 1000, obviously. Yeah. And I know, Michael, you know that as well, but and obviously Hayden was in, wasn't it Super Stock 1000 when Hayden Gillum was riding?
He was in Super Stock 1000, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting how Cycle World has been around, and I mean, it's obviously an iconic brand the world over. And boy, I mean, it's got to be interesting for you. That brand, in the time you've worked for them, has gone through such a large transition, as have all magazines, with the whole idea about print going to kind of online, and what you're doing now. Does the basis of a lot of what you do, is it still the same as it was? I mean, you still test motorcycles and write about them, right? I mean, it's just now it's online. Is that an accurate assessment of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously Octane purchased us in at the end of 2020, and we've really gotten back strictly to testing motorcycles, which is really refreshing. Obviously, that's my background and skill set. But yeah, we review any and all motorcycles that we can get our hands on. Personally, I'm in charge of actually writing and reviewing these motorcycles. I'm also in charge of dynoing all of the motorcycles and weighing and measuring all the motorcycles that we get in house, and then also taking them out to the airstrip and getting performance numbers, quarter mile, 0 to 60, braking performance numbers as well. So yeah, it's it really is a refreshing take, is to just get back to the core element of our business, as testing motorcycles.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing about you guys, I have stacks of the buyer's guides from way back, and those things have been a big deal for Cycle World over the years. Is that buyer's guide still an important part of what you guys put out every year?
Buyer's guide is absolutely crucial. So again, now with Octane owning us, we're looking to connect the dots in the buying experience and inspire people to go buy motorcycles. And these buyer's guides, we try and give readers and enthusiasts all the information you could possibly imagine about each one of these models, and how they've evolved through the years. So if anything, I would say buyer's guide is even more critical than it has been in the past.
And Michael, what would you say is the state of motorcycling for consumers right now? I mean, we've heard all these stories and read that during COVID, people kind of were home, so they bought everything from UTVs to ATVs to dirt bikes to street bikes, and it seemed to boost motorcycling and the motorcycle industry. Are we still riding that wave, or will it continue for a while, or what's the state right now? How are sales of bikes in general?
I can't comment on actual numbers, but I think that yes, we're still riding that wave a little bit. I think that obviously the motorcycle industry, we've seen a nice boom since COVID, and people are out riding. The biggest hope is that all these people and first-time buyers and first-time riders that we acquired during COVID will continue on and hopefully lead to like lifelong motorcycling careers, so you call it, and see. But yeah, I would say that we're motorcycling is definitely in a good spot right now, and I think that it will tailor at some point. It's only natural as people get back to work and responsibilities change again. But fingers crossed that it continues on.
Well, I can't go through this podcast with Michael Gilbert without talking about Jason Aguilar a little bit.
Yes.
We talked about the semi and the new team and what you've been able to put together there. And when I went and visited your team, he's missed. I mean, I miss seeing I miss his smart ass attitude. I miss him giving me shit. I miss his animal crackers. I just think he's a guy that had a presence in that paddock, and it wasn't this overpowering presence, but you just knew he was there, and he always had a smile on his face, and he was just a cool guy to hang out with. And Michael, I know you must miss him tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're getting me a little choked up over here.
Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry about
Jason.
that.
No. I think Jason was one of my best friends, and in 2021, I called him and asked him to be my crew chief when I knew his racing plans fell through. And truthfully, Jason did an amazing job at it. Like, he really took it to another level that really impressed me. I knew he was going to do a good job. I didn't think he was going to take it that seriously as he did, and he's absolutely missed in our little pit. We had a lot of fun last year, and those will be some memories that we had that we'll take on forever. Yeah, Coda was a little bit tough. I will say Coda was a little bit tough without Jason, but it is what it is. And I think the only thing we can do is continue on racing.
Yeah, and I think he'd be very proud of what you've been able to put together and keep everybody involved and really turn that team into like a proper team, as Sean mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think if I can just add real quick, like, Jason was actually supposed to be a part of this whole team as a racer.
Right.
Jason was coming back racing in 2022, and we had some mutual sponsors and mutual ideas of our program, and we had plans to be under the semi together, under the canopy together, and start racing. And then we even talked about in 2023 going superbike racing together. So he is definitely missed, and yeah, we'll just race on in 2022 for Jason.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We go to Road Atlanta here next week. You had a fresh start in the Stock 1000 race. Obviously, you've got a couple of races under your belt in the superbike class, but we do go to Road Atlanta. It's the start of the Stock 1000 championship, and I know that's your priority. You always seem to win a race. You always seem to get a bunch of podiums. What's it going to take to get to that? And you're not very far away from it, obviously, but to that next level of winning that championship.
A little bit of consistency, which is kind of the reason that I went over to the Suzuki in the first place. Having a little bit of experience on the motorcycle in 2020 when I rode for Dave Anthony the last 2 rounds of Superbike at Indianapolis and Laguna, I knew that this motorcycle was something that would be consistent and that I could work with. I wasn't necessarily looking for the best motorcycle in any regard, in any area of the racetrack, but I was looking for a motorcycle that was flexible and compliant and easy to work with. And I think we've really found that with the Suzuki. I need to be able to go to the racetrack and do my job without necessarily fighting the bike so much. And that's really lent a hand just this winter. And at Coda, I feel like we got off to a really good start, and I'm quite confident that we're going to be in a place this year where I would like our worst days to be third place and be on the box. But just staying consistent and keeping it upright and just putting in good results every weekend, I think that's what's going to get us to where our goal is of winning the Stock 1000 championship.
Michael, I want to ask you some questions about Coda, a couple technical, quasi-technical things about it. So we knew that between last year and this year, they had resurfaced the track, and Matthew Skoltz was kind of amused by the fact that when I talked to Danilo Petrucci about the track, he actually said that he thought the paved areas were bumpier than they were before. And Matthew thought, no way. I mean, if he thinks that's bumpy, wait till he gets to Road Atlanta, which we all know is kind of going to be the eye opener for that. But how did you find that track? I heard it was pretty abrasive, and it sounds like, from what I understand, you went with that, not the medium, but the soft front tire. And how were your tires after your racing?
Yeah, the challenge of Coda was getting the tire choice right. I had only ever been to Coda. I think I was there in 2018 for a press event. I maybe done 12 or 15 laps there prior to this last weekend. So it was definitely a very fresh experience. I don't necessarily have relative terms to compare what I rode last weekend to as in the past. But yeah, we were working on tires a lot and tire choice a lot. Truthfully, I wish I would have had like one more session, because we raced the 00 9.7 on Sunday afternoon on the rear tire. And we thought about going a step harder with the medium and looking at it that way. But, again, we only had so much time at COTA. But it was a challenge with the tires, and it definitely was very abrasive. And there's definitely different surfaces throughout the course of a lap, which made it challenging as well. But overall, I would say that COTA's in pretty good shape right now. I think Danilo, it could be interesting for him when he gets to other places around the country and sees some of the asphalt that we're going to be working with.
And you were an example of somebody that I was concerned about and also wondered about with regard to the transition, or going from the Saturday afternoon race to the Sunday afternoon race. Generally, from one day to another, you don't race back to back. You generally have a warm-up session, even though it's earlier in the day or whatever, and would have been if it was in the morning at COTA. But you guys didn't have that, so you had some issues in that first race, and you didn't really have, other than a couple sighting laps, I guess, before the start of the next race. Was that kind of concerning for you because you didn't know if your bike was good to go, and you had to find out? I mean, you couldn't run it on the track before the race started, kind of. Is that the correct?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, we had a little bit of an issue Saturday afternoon. I fell down on turn 12 at the end of the back straight doing literally 35 miles an hour. It was just a silly mistake on my part. And I got back up and we continued on the Saturday Superbike race. We didn't finish the race, but basically all I wanted to do was go out and get my confidence back right away, and make sure I didn't make that mistake again, and try and understand and wrap my head around what I did do. And so we went to bed Saturday night. I mean, the motorcycle was almost completely unscathed. So we went to bed Saturday night, and I will tell you, it was very nice to kind of sleep in on Sunday and not have a warm up, because it was such a long weekend. Just getting the whole program and getting it all set up for the first time, I was exhausted. So to sleep in and kind of be fresh on Sunday, it wasn't too much of a worry. It's just racing motorcycles. It's what we do. So I was fired up for the race on Sunday, and it went pretty well.
And what was it like from one session to the other? You guys were essentially, you guys were the first ones out on the track on Friday morning, super early, and it was cold. It was a dirty track. I understand there wasn't a lot of rubber down, and I heard that was a little tricky. And then you had to go into qualifying. You essentially qualified provisionally and finally qualified all in one day. So that was some crazy stuff going on there. Was that a lot of differences in the way the bike felt between those sessions?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yes, for sure. Friday morning was really just a way for us to go see the racetrack. It wasn't like we were setting lap times at all. We went out when it was 46 degrees or something, when we first rolled out for the session. So really, again, I hadn't been there since 2018, and maybe had only ever done 12 or 15 laps around the place. So it was a way to check it out. And yes, the conditions were so much different, but in a way, having 3 sessions on Friday, it gave us the ability to kind of just get into a flow and make those plans, rather than, on Saturday, there was a practice at 8 a.m. and then we didn't race until 5:30 in the afternoon. So, to kind of get into the flow of things and have a plan for that entire Friday, I would say is pretty beneficial for probably everyone there.
Yeah, and one more thing about that COTA conditions, I think it was worse on Sunday than it was on Saturday, but my gosh, it was windy there. And I heard maybe it was turn 11. It was kind of sucking you guys in because of the way the wind was blowing. Did you experience that too, that wind, when it came up in the afternoon for those races, definitely changed things a little bit too?
Man, it was windy everywhere. It wasn't just one turn, but yeah, I'm more experienced at coming off of the back straight. You go down, your 6th gear wide open, and you let off the brakes or let off the throttle, and you would get pushed to the right side of the racetrack to where you'd almost have to start tipping in early, and braking a little bit early to make sure that you got down to the apex. And I was so I had a couple deja vu moments when the wind got me of going into turn 12 and falling down on Saturday. I'm like, oh geez, here we go again. And then I can't remember the number of the corner. I think it's 18, the long right-hander. you come out, and right as you tip into the right-hander, you come out from behind the wall and the wind would come straight across you and start pushing you really wide. So you had to kind of anticipate those things, and just be prepared for them. But yeah, it was tricky conditions.
Yeah, and then for that track as well, I was surprised when I was looking at the top speeds in different sessions. You guys were all going a little bit slower in the races, and I think the wind obviously had a huge amount to do with that, as well as the fact the track was pretty warm at that point. But Petrucci had done a 195.7 top speed in practice 2, which was that Saturday morning colder practice session, which surprises me a little bit. And a bunch of people had told me, well, that's the draft or whatever. And people were asking where the top speed is on that track. And were you able to get pretty fast as you could pretty much go? And where is it? It's not across start finish, is it? Is it the back straight there? Where do you go the fastest on that track?
On the end of the back straight. Yeah, I think typically most of the stock 1,000 machines, including myself, I think the highest speeds we saw was 182, 183, and that was typically in a draft. It's hard to know exactly what laps those were and when we had drafts and whatnot, but we were consistently over 180 miles an hour on the stock 1,000 spec bikes.
That's pretty impressive stuff. The last thing I want to talk to you about is, we touched on a little bit, but obviously you're being supported by Chuck Wally. You go out there a lot, and explain for the listeners. So obviously you're a moto journalist, you're a road racer, but you're also a coach, and you do a lot of that at Chuck Walla. Are you still affiliated with JP43 Training and Jason Pridmore, or do you have your own program now? I mean, how does that whole thing work?
No, I'm still with Jason and JP43 Training. It's something that we've, I would say myself and Jason and Corey Alexander and a couple of the other regulars out at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway have built. And we've just built our one-on-one training platform. And man, it feels like if I'm not out racing myself, I'm out at Chuckwalla teaching. Actually, those guys are out there right now, and Jason was trying to get me to come out and teach all week. But like Jason, I have a real job too. I can't just bail all the time. So yeah, we're out at Chuckwalla all the time, and with JP43 Training, it's really been a lot of fun all winter long, and obviously we'll taper off a little bit now for the MotoAmerica season, and it's getting hot out there too. But yeah, still doing a lot of coaching.
Boy, I don't know how you keep your life straight, Michael. You got so much going on, and I know we see you sometimes when you're at the race weekends. You'll have a occasional conference call, or you'll be working on a story or something. So I know you put everything in, but boy, it's got to be hard. With regard to your training, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute, and I don't know if you can even answer this or it's even answerable, but if you could impart a specific piece of wisdom on a motorcycle rider for the street or track days, what is the one most important thing you tell a student, or you would tell me, for instance?
Man, that's tough.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm sorry.
Don't crash would be good.
Well, yeah, I think that, man.
Is it be smooth? Is it brakes? I mean, what is it?
I think that it's, from my perspective, I think that it's a willingness to learn and really choose who you're getting your guidance from. That doesn't mean, like, I'm not trying to boast what we do at JP43 Training, but really look at who you're learning from and look at their background. I think that motorcycle training is a very interesting thing. I think that, we look at other sports, we look at music, whatever. People will pay for piano coach, and they'll pay for a tennis coach, and they'll pay for this and this and this and this. But then people have a little bit of an ego behind themselves with motorcycle training and motorcycle racing. And yeah, it's probably a little bit more expensive than these other coaches out in the world, but the level of risk and the danger and everything behind it is so much more that it's like we need to set those things aside, listen to trusted people with experience or coaches or guides, and go from there. I think that you can never stop learning, and I've really put myself in the approach, not only with motorcycling but with other things around my life now, having had a coaching background, that I'm always willing to listen and learn from people with more experience, from more experience than me. I hope that's a good one. Is that a good one?
It's
That's pretty
excellent.
good.
I mean,
Yeah.
I thought I blew your mind there for a minute, but all it was you were thinking, and that's a well thought out answer. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I you know, obviously I want to see motorcycling grow, and to have people led in the right direction is absolutely critical in that, because obviously motorcycling is dangerous, and we can make it as safe as possible and as entertaining and enjoyable as possible. That's what's going to help our entire industry.
Well said. All right, Sean, you done with him or not?
Oh, I got more, but I'll just save it for later. I got to call
Sean just
Mike,
likes talking.
I got to call Mike Pond and tell him I missed seeing him and I feel like an idiot. So
Well, tell him you were just
Sean's-
so busy with Quattararo that you didn't have a chance, and Jorge Martin. I saw you spend a lot of time with those guys, and then you ignore poor Mike. I don't get it.
oh yeah, I was all about those guys and for sure Pecco Bagnaia.
Yeah, you just like to say his name.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
All
I
right,
can barely
Gilbert.
I can barely get a wave out of Sean at the races now.
Oh, come on. I waved to you.
It's
You're
true.
my guy. You're my guy.
It's true.
Yeah,
I'll do better.
You strive for a head nod every once in a while.
Right.
If you could
Yeah.
get that, things would be better. At least I go to his pit and hang out and like talk about bicycles and coffee.
I need to do that more. You're right. Yeah. All right. Lesson learned.
All right, you guys.
right.
Michael, we're very proud of you and what you've been able to put together. And I think you're going to have a wonderful season, and you'll get some sleep along the way, I hope, and some good results and battle for that championship while also taking part in Superbike. So it's going to be a big season for you. And I think it'll be something that you can truly build on. And who knows, in 10 or 15 years, you might just be some old grumpy team owner with a bunch of kids under the truck or something.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you guys. Really appreciate I appreciate the support, and I appreciate you guys having me on, and we'll hopefully I get to say hi to Sean here more often out at the races.
Yes.
We can bring him into the pit, give him a couple snacks and drinks, and warm him up a little bit.
Sean, Gilbert and I get together every once in a while and do like millennial things like meet for coffee on our bicycles and stuff. It makes me, he includes me in that, and it makes me feel really young that I can do millennial type things like that. So.
Well, you guys are the ones that actually got me to. I didn't originally know what the hell avocado toast was. So you guys are the ones that actually explained that to me.
You guys even have
probably not a thing in
avocados?
Ohio.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
We finally have bagels out here. So, that's kind of good.
Yeah, you might be a little farther away from an avocado though.
A little bit. Yeah, I think they get kind of spoiled by the time they get here. So.
All right, I'll bring you some to Atlanta.
Oh man, that'd be awesome.
All right, you boys. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.